I've been looking at ageing, trying to find out how people feel about growing older and exploring the questions that it provokes across generations and cultures. This research has included an introduction to the biological processes of ageing and current scientific research developments into the repairing and renewal of cell life, including some of the more extreme claims into the potential for arresting the process of senescence. Despite its apparent unsexiness, it has become evident that the subject of ageing is of real interest to people. Perhaps this is because all discourse ultimately circulates around one of the most keenly felt facts for us all, that there is only one certainty in our lives, and that is death. It seems that this inevitability can be a driving force, raising questions regarding how we manage, challenge, or resist the journey towards ageing and our demise. Our evident fascination with the cultural, spiritual, psychological and scientific significance of these processes has become the central focus for my research and has guided me towards the following emerging themes and questions. Growing up and growing old. Tom Stoppard said, "I think age is a very high price to pay for maturity." So what does it mean to grow up, and when have we become grown up? And when does growing up become growing old?
Growing up becomes growing old when you have actually experienced everything you can do, and there's nothing left to learn.
And I think what it is to be grown up is so much more fragmented now than it was. I think it was possibly simpler for my grandmother or even my mother. Now it's much more complicated.
Just being happy with who
Little
you
things,
are
yeah.
and not caring what other people think.
No.
Oh, definitely 78 was a turning point with me. And I used to think, people who say they don't feel any different, lucky them, but I don't know what they mean.
But you really don't feel old, you're just you all the time.
Growing old is when you start reflecting on growing up.
Yeah.
It's been fascinating starting thinking about ageing as a research topic, because I've actually been avoiding getting involved with the research for quite a long time because I find it unsexy and scary. Part of that is that I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up.
How you think you've arrived and then there's a change. So life is all about changes.
You know, that it is a series of transitions. There's a lot of freedom in being grown up because you can almost have come home to yourself.
The physical, cultural and psychological markers of ageing. Bette Davis famously said, "Old age is no place for sissies." And in this section, the physical markers and emotional markers of ageing, we've been looking at what happens biologically to our bodies as we age, and why does this happen, and how does this demise process affect us psychologically and culturally.
How a person looks is certainly on a sociological level very important. If you were to talk to, your average person in the street, the first sign of ageing that they will say is, greying of hair and wrinkles.
And the other thing that I think for any woman is critical, obviously the menopause is part of that, but losing your looks and how other people, the extent to which you're judged by that. And then that thing that women often say, that they become invisible to men, I guess.
I'm interested in how ideas about ageing and how we might combat the ill effects of that are kind of imagined and represented culturally. But obviously I work with other sociologists who do work more at the sharp end, like Alex Hillman, who works in CISOGEN. One of the things she's going to be doing is she's going to be working with people in memory clinics, trying to find out how they help people with Alzheimer's.
Senescence is a broad brush term that people use for things at the end of their life and decaying and not functioning anymore. In this term, we're using it very specifically for cell senescence, or strictly speaking, replicative senescence.
There's not a lot of good things about being old. I got my aches, and I'd give them a buff to be youth again and start off.
But I would say that I have mellowed tremendously, because I could have been quite exclusive myself.
Absolutely hate my grey hair, absolutely hate it, cover it up wherever I can. Bingo wings are all right, a bit like doilies.
I think it's aches and pains actually. I think
Joints.
Joints, you know.
No, I take everything in stride. I try my best not to mash anybody's corns. And I try my best to step aside so nobody will mash my corns as well.
I hate the flat arse. Oh, it's terrible. I feel quite a little nice sticking out bottom.
I like the comfortableness that you get to when you get to a certain age.
Because my period stopped for the last time the day that I returned after dropping off Sean, my youngest daughter, to university.
I think as you have mellowed with age, Daddy has become more agitated.
Yeah, women just get saggy and wrinkly.
Yeah, physically they age.
And then men are just kind of get like more good looking until their ears get too big and then they just get stupid big.
Apparently your ears and nose never stop growing.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're immortal.
Well, my husband says, I don't know that guy in the mirror.
In the same way you get changes in the female body at the time of menopause with radical shifts in hormones, you get the same in the male body when testosterone levels collapse out. So there's a whole list of about 10 or 15 things that happen to the male body. You become sleepy, you lose sex drive, you don't feel like you can do sports and all these various things. A lot of those you can restore very rapidly by giving
like HRT.
Like in male version, yes, it is male HRT. So it's
the jobs we've done and our lifestyle, I didn't really expect to have old bones. I know they're there, I'm not really prepared for them.
Old skin or older skin, you see more infections, and that's why older individuals have shingles, etc., and blisters, and perhaps certainly more cold sores. The repair mechanisms slow down. So, for example, when one does cut oneself, it may take longer to repair. But on the positive side, because it's a slower process, it's not so aggressive, you get much better scar formation.
Anti-aging science, interventions, and our relationship to immortality. Is the biological process of aging amenable to manipulation? And if so, for whom exactly is this desirable? And what are our cultural responses to the notion of a scientific quest for immortality? What ethical and civil questions might these potentials raise? During this research, I kept wondering if there was a growing civil deficit between the potentialities of science and technological discoveries and our ability socially to keep abreast of their implications.
Basically, we fear mortality. It's like, so how does that kind of impel people to do research in a particular area?
Right at the point where I get this thing to work, here we go. I'm going to talk about 5 different things. I'm going to talk about why defeating aging is desirable. I'm going to talk about why we have to get our shit together and actually talk about this a bit more than we do. I'm going to talk about feasibility as well, of course. I'm going to talk about why we are so fatalistic about doing anything about aging. And then I'm going to spend perhaps the second half of the talk talking about how we might actually be able to prove that our fatalism is wrong, namely by actually doing something about it.
Aging is kind of like the last frontier, I guess, kind of medically and scientifically. So there's been a big focus on things like kind of stem cell research on the ways in which that can produce this thing called regenerative medicine. So, once we can think about kind of regrowing organs, perhaps, and lots of this stuff is in the future, but it's what's imagined as the outcome of this scientific research. Once we've thought about regrowing organs, regenerating other parts of the body, then presumably kind of life extension is the next thing.